What would you do if your HOA fined you for installing security cameras, right after someone tried to break into your house? I never thought I'd be the kind of person who needed security cameras. I grew up trusting that if you locked your doors at night, you were safe. My town wasn't the kind of place where crime thrived. People left their doors unlocked during the day. Neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles. The worst thing you had to worry about was a stray dog knocking over your trash cans. Or at least, that's what I thought. The past few weeks had shaken that belief to its core. It started with little things, small enough that I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. The gate in my backyard was left open when I was certain I'd latched it shut. The garden hose I always coiled neatly was sprawled across the lawn like someone had dragged it. The doorknob to my back porch felt different. Loose, like someone had been messing with it. I blamed myself, thinking maybe I was getting forgetful. But deep down, I knew something was off. Then came the sounds. At first, I brushed them off as the house settling, old places creak and groan under changing temperatures. But these were different. Late at night, just as I was drifting off to sleep, would hear soft rustling near the windows. Faint footsteps on the back porch. They weren't hurried, like an animal scurrying by. They were slow. Careful. Intentional. The first few times, I told myself it was the wind. But as the nights passed, the unease grew stronger. One night, long after midnight, I finally decided to check. My heart pounded as I pulled the curtain back just a sliver and peered outside. My breath caught. A figure stood near the edge of my backyard, just beyond the reach of the porch light. They weren't moving. They weren't even trying to hide. They were just standing there. Watching. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure standing there, watching, waiting. My mind raced with possibilities. Had they been coming here every night? Had they tried to get inside before? And the worst thought of all, would they come back? By morning, I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to sit around and pretend everything was fine. The first thing I did was drive straight to the hardware store. I bought the best security system I could afford, motion detectors, cameras for the front and back, and a smart lock for the back door. I spent hours installing them, testing the angles, making sure every entrance was covered. When I finally finished, I felt a small sense of relief. At least now, if anything happened, would have proof. That feeling didn't last long. A few days later, a letter showed up in my mailbox, stamped with the logo of the HOA. My stomach sank before I even opened it. Violation notice, unauthorized installation of surveillance equipment. I read it twice, then a third time, trying to make sense of it. According to the letter, my security cameras were a violation of the HOA's aesthetic guidelines. If I didn't take them down within 72 hours, would be fined daily until I complied. I could already picture Karen smirking as she signed off on it. I stormed down the street to her house, fists clenched at my sides. When she opened the door, she had that same smug look she always wore, like she was doing me a favor just by acknowledging my presence. "Oh," she said, eyes flicking over my tense posture. "Let me guess. The letter?" I shoved it toward her. "You're fining me for installing security cameras? Are you serious?" Karen sighed, as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "It's nothing personal. Rules are rules." I nearly laughed in disbelief. "Karen, someone was outside my house the other night. Watching me. What kind of HOA punishes people for protecting themselves?" She tilted her head, fake sympathy dripping from her voice. "Maybe you just imagined it. This is a safe neighborhood. We wouldn't want to scare people with unnecessary paranoia." I wanted to scream. "You need to remove those cameras," she continued, folding her arms. "If you're that scared, maybe this neighborhood isn't the right fit for you. That was it. I wasn't taking them down. Let them find me. Let them try to stop me. That night, just before bed, I checked my security feed. Everything was quiet. 2 nights later, my phone buzzed with a notification. Motion detected, back door. My heart nearly stopped. Hands shaking, I opened the live feed. The screen flickered for a moment before the image loaded. A man stood at my back door. My stomach dropped. He wasn't knocking. He wasn't trying to force his way in. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled something out, and held it up to the lock. A key. He had a key to my house. I barely had time to process the thought before he slid it into the lock and turned. The soft click of the door unlocking echoed through the silent house. The moment I heard the lock click, my body moved before my mind could catch up. My breath came fast and shallow, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst through my ribs. I wasn't prepared for this. I had locked every door, secured every window, installed cameras, none of it mattered. He was inside. The back door creaked as it swung open, the sound slicing through the thick silence of the house. I stood frozen in the living room, my phone clutched in my shaking hand, my body screaming at me to move, hide, do something. I heard his footsteps, slow, measured. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicked. He was comfortable, like he had all the time in the world. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it. How did he have a key? I hadn't given one to anyone except the HOA. Ice flooded my veins. Karen. The HOA required homeowners to provide a spare key for emergency purposes. I had barely thought twice about it when I handed mine over months ago, assuming it was just another ridiculous policy meant to give them more control. Had she been careless with it? Or, worse, had she given it to him? I didn't have time to figure it out. I took a slow, careful step backward, trying to put distance between me and the sound of his movements. My socks muffled my steps on the hardwood, but as I reached the base of the stairs, my foot barely nudged the edge of a chair leg. The scrape of wood against the floor was barely a whisper, but it was enough. The footsteps stopped. A sickening silence stretched between us, heavy and unbearable. Then, a voice, low, calm, too calm. "I know you're here." My throat closed. He wasn't trying to be stealthy anymore. He wanted me to hear him. My fingers fumbled across my phone screen as I swiped at the emergency dial button. My breath was ragged, my pulse roaring in my ears as the ringing started. 911, what's your emergency? I opened my mouth to speak, but the second I did, the footsteps rushed forward. I bolted. I took the stairs 2 at a time, my legs burning, panic choking every breath. The dispatcher's voice was muffled against the rush of blood in my ears as I gasped out, "Someone's in my house. He has a key, he got inside." I reached my bedroom, throwing myself inside and slamming the door shut. My hands trembled as I twisted the lock, pressing my back against the wood as though my weight alone could hold it closed. Silence. Then, footsteps on the stairs. Slow. Unrushed. The door handle rattled. I clapped my hand over my mouth, swallowing down a sob as I pressed myself harder against the door. The lock would hold. It had to hold. A heavy thud struck the wood, shaking the doorframe. Then another. A crack split through the silence. The lock strained, the hinges groaning under the force pressing against them. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to think, trying to plan, but all I could focus on was the splintering wood, the inches between me and whatever was on the other side. The window. It was my only chance. I turned, gripping the sill, yanking at the old frame. It stuck, years of paint keeping it sealed shut. Another loud crack behind me. The door was giving in. I threw my weight against the window, shoving it open just as the final crack of wood split through the room. I didn't think. I just jumped. The drop was higher than I expected, the cold night air swallowing me as I fell. My feet slammed into the ground, pain exploding through my legs as I stumbled forward, barely catching myself before I collapsed completely. The sharp sting of gravel bit into my palms, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps as I forced myself upright. Then I saw it. Movement. Not from the house. From the trees. A second figure, standing just beyond the streetlight's reach. Watching. I wasn't dealing with one intruder. There were two. My body screamed at me to run, but my mind was stuck, frozen in the horrifying realization that I wasn't just running from one intruder, I was being hunted by two. The man in my house, the one who had just broken down my bedroom door, was still inside. But this second figure? He had been waiting. Watching from the trees. I forced myself to move. Every step sent sharp jolts of pain through my legs, but I didn't care. I sprinted toward the street, toward safety, toward the flashing porch lights of my neighbors' houses. My only thought was to get to someone, anyone who could help. And that's when I heard the sirens. Relief flooded through me. The police. They were coming, the dispatcher must have tracked my location, and now help was finally on the way. I just had to keep going, had to make it to the road where they could see me. But before I could take another step, blinding white headlights cut across my vision, followed by the sharp screech of tires. A car pulled up fast, stopping just feet in front of me. My heart nearly gave out as the driver's side door swung open and a figure stepped out. Karen. Even from a distance, I could see the smug twist of her lips, the way she carried herself like she owned everything and everyone. She didn't look concerned. She didn't even look surprised to see me sprinting out of the dark, breathless and terrified. She looked annoyed. She lifted her phone, speaking into it with that same syrupy sweet voice she used when filing official HOA complaints. Yes, I'd like to report a trespasser. I stopped dead in my tracks, my mind struggling to keep up. What? Karen's eyes flicked over me with a look of disgust, like I was some stray animal she had found digging through her garbage. There's a suspicious person running through our neighborhood, she continued, her voice laced with fake concern. I don't know who they are, but they look, dangerous, I couldn't breathe. I staggered forward, still gasping for air. Karen, are you serious? Someone is in my house. Someone just broke in. I called 911, She arched an eyebrow, tucking her phone against her shoulder. Oh? Is that what happened? Her tone was mocking, bored, like she had already decided I was lying. Because from where I'm standing, it just looks like you're the problem. The distant sirens grew louder. The police were almost here. But suddenly, I wasn't sure if that was a good thing anymore. Karen smirked, tapping a finger against her chin like she was deep in thought. You know, I was just saying at our last HOA meeting that you were acting a little paranoid. First the security cameras, now this? Running around at night, causing a scene? It's almost like you're trying to get attention. I clenched my fists, rage threatening to take over my fear. Someone broke into my house. Karen waved a hand dismissively. Right. And yet, instead of staying put like a rational person, you came running through the neighborhood, scaring people. I mean, think about it, who's really the one causing problems here? I was shaking. I didn't know if it was from fear, exhaustion, or pure, blinding fury. Then the first police car pulled up. I turned, expecting relief, expecting them to jump out and help. Instead, two officers stepped out and immediately walked toward me, hands hovering near their belts. Karen pointed at me like she was calling a dog to heel. That's them, officers. I was just on my evening drive when I saw them sprinting through people's yards. They looked like they were up to something. I opened my mouth to speak, but one of the officers cut me off. "Sir, we need you to calm down." I nearly laughed. "Calm down, someone just broke into my house. I was being chased. And they were telling me to calm down, asterisk asterisk." I held up my hands, forcing myself to breathe. "Listen to me. I called 911. I live here, asterisk asterisk someone broke into my house. He had a key, he was inside, I ran to get help." The officers exchanged a look. One of them turned to Karen. "You know this person?" Karen sighed dramatically, crossing her arms. "Ugh. Unfortunately, yes. They've been causing a lot of problems lately, security cameras where they don't belong, stirring up paranoia, acting like we live in some crime-ridden hellhole. Now this." The officer glanced back at me, skeptical. "Can you prove you live here?" I felt like I had been punched. Asterisk asterisk can I, asterisk asterisk are you kidding me? Go inside. Look at the door he broke down. Look at my cameras. Look at the footage, asterisk asterisk. Karen made a disapproving noise in the back of her throat. "Such a drama queen, officers, you're going to want to check your records. I already reported them for HOA violations last week. I wouldn't be surprised if they were trying to stage something just to cause trouble." That was it. That was the moment I realized she was doing this on purpose. She wasn't just ignoring what happened. She wasn't just brushing it off like she had before. She was trying to make sure no one believed me. The officer sighed, rubbing a hand down his face. "Okay, let's just slow down. We'll check your security footage and..." Before he could finish, my phone vibrated. I glanced down and felt the blood drain from my face. Motion detected, living room. I snapped my head up. The intruder was still inside. And we were out here, wasting time. I turned and sprinted toward the house. "Sir! Stop!" I didn't care. I needed to get to my cameras. I needed proof. I needed them to see. But as I ran, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen was watching me with that smug little smile, already planning her next move. The officers followed me inside, their flashlights sweeping over the living room as my pulse pounded in my ears. The door was still slightly ajar from when the intruder entered, a chilling reminder that he had walked in like he belonged here. The broken bedroom door upstairs told the rest of the story, but it wasn't enough. I needed them to see what I had seen. I rushed to my laptop, pulling up the security footage with shaking hands. The grainy video flickered to life, and there he was, the man at my back door, using a key to get in. I turned to the officers, expecting alarm, expecting them to finally take this seriously. Instead, one of them let out a sigh. "It's dark." Hard to make out his face. My stomach dropped. "Are you serious? You can see he had a key. How do you think he got it?" Karen's voice cut through the room like nails on a chalkboard. "Oh, come on. That could be anyone. Maybe it was just some disgruntled worker you annoyed with all your paranoid complaints." I clenched my fists so tightly my nails dug into my palms. She knew. She knew exactly what was happening. The way she stood there, arms crossed, that smug smirk still playing on her lips, it was all calculated. And that's when I saw it. A notification on the security feed. Motion detected, side yard. I clicked on it without thinking. The footage was live. The officers leaned in, and for the first time that night, I saw something flicker across their faces, something that almost looked like concern. A man stood at the edge of my property, just outside the range of the streetlights. Not moving. Watching. And then, he did something that turned my blood to ice. He lifted his hand, and waved. Not in a panicked, I've been caught kind of way. Not in a desperate attempt to flee. It was slow. Deliberate. Like a message. Like a promise. The sirens had scared them off tonight, but that wave told me this wasn't over. By the time the officers made it outside, the man was gone. No footprints. No evidence. Just shadows stretching under the streetlights. They promised they'd increase patrols, but that didn't matter. Because this wasn't random. This wasn't just some break-in gone wrong. Karen knew something. And worse? She wasn't afraid. She wanted me to feel powerless. When the officers finally left, Karen lingered a little longer, watching me with thinly veiled amusement. I really think you should consider selling, she mused, her voice light and condescending. This neighborhood might not be the right fit for you. I didn't respond. I was too busy staring at the envelope she had just slid into my mailbox before walking away. There was no return address. No name. Just a single note inside. We'll see you again soon. And next to it, a copy of my house key. I felt the walls of my own home closing in around me, the weight of it all sinking deep into my bones. I wasn't safe. I never had been. The police wouldn't help. The HOA wouldn't protect me. And Karen? She had won. For now. But one thing was certain, this wasn't the end. Have you ever felt powerless against an HOA, or a Karen, who refused to take you seriously? Share your experiences below, let's see who had it worse.